welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic on a blisteringly hot day here in the UK. Well, I'm not sure if you'd count it as blisteringly hot, but for me it is blisteringly hot, especially in my attic, which is a nightmare. But anyway, that doesn't stop the Sudoku train from leaving the station. We're going to be having a look at the puzzle on the screen, which is called Lattice by D.V. Frank. And I think I did a D.V. Frank puzzle before, and it was excellent. So I'm looking forward to having a go at this one, which has a very interesting collection of cages in that grid. Now, before I read you the rules, a couple of things to mention. You've got 1 week left to get your solutions in to the Looney Tunes Sudoku Hunt over on Patreon at the moment. So if you want a chance to win the merch, do send us your answers as soon as you can. You'll join the several hundred other people who've actually sent in correct answers. There's been some amazing solving, and we've had some lovely feedback, so I definitely recommend, if you've got some time, do spend it in the company of those Sudokus. You will enjoy it. Also, we are really close now to 400,000 subscribers. We may even have reached it by the time this video goes out, but if we haven't, please click the subscribe button if you enjoy the contents of the channel and get us over this landmark hurdle. We would be most grateful, and we will make a special video to celebrate if we do get there. Now, all that said and done, let's have a look at this puzzle, and I'll read you the rules. They are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage. Digits cannot repeat within a cage, so it's normal killer Sudoku rules. The clue outside the grid gives the sum of the digits along the indicated diagonal. That's this one, and presumably this diagonal. Digits can repeat along this diagonal if allowed by other rules, which makes sense, because if they couldn't repeat, this should add up to 45 because of the secret. But it adds up to 37, so we could have actually deduced there must be a repeating digit. And yeah, we've just got to make sure that we don't break the rules of Sudoku or killer Sudoku when we place these digits along these lines, such that the outlined blue squares add up to 37. So it's all standard stuff. Do have a go. I don't know how difficult this puzzle is at all. You will have a better idea than I do by looking at the length of the video, assuming this video ever sees the light of day. And with that, well, no, not with that. So do have a go. The way to play, click link under the video. I think I already said that. Did I say it already? If I didn't, then I've definitely said it once. But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Let's get cracking, and got a given digit on the 37 diagonal, but I mean the 37 diagonal is very slightly low, isn't it? Because if each of these digits was an average number in the Sudoku, that would be 5, so that's 45. So 37, we're averaging just over 4, which basically means this diagonal is not useful at this moment. There's an awful lot of 15 cages in this grid, in the sort of northwest corner of boxes. That's weird. In fact, in general, the northwest corners of boxes are very constrained. Look, we can add... yeah, this looks very suspicious, doesn't it? It's, Now, it's quite rare. It's quite rare that titles of puzzles actually give me any sort of insight into how to solve them. But this is called Lattice. And I can... Let me just highlight those. If I highlight those, and then highlight the rest of the white cells in the grid in a different colour, I get very close to a lattice. I mean, I can feel I get 2 squares out from being a very natural lattice. I get those squares. If I miss those 2 squares out, let's just... the orange squares most certainly look like a lattice. Right, so what does this imply to us? I can hear Maverick's just taken off. That means I'll be buzzed up by an aeroplane any moment now. So we do know the value of all of the blue squares. Right, yeah, okay. I wonder here if we have to do something using the whole grid. Because the lattice, I don't quite know what it's equal to, i.e. what it sums to, but I do know it's not going to be far away from 270, or it's probably not going to be far away. Yes, yeah, this looks deeply suspicious to me. Let me explain why. So, let us try and define this. In fact, I'm going to highlight these two squares as well in a different colour. I'll make those yellow. Let's try and define this Sudoku grid in terms of colours. What would we say? The whole Sudoku grid is basically equal to the blue squares plus the yellow squares plus the orange squares. But we can actually replace a lot of those colours with actual numbers in this particular case, because the whole Sudoku grid is just 405, i.e. all the digits in any Sudoku or any normal Sudoku will add to 405. How do I know that, you may ask, if you're new to the channel? Well, of course, every box of a Sudoku contains the digits 1 to 9 once each. If you add up those digits, you'll get 45, which is we sometimes refer to as the secret. And there are 9 boxes in the Sudoku, so what's 9 times 45? Well, it's 405. So we've got 405 is equal to the blue squares plus the yellow squares plus the orange squares. But we can go much further than that, I think, because the blue squares, I'm going to actually add the 15s up first because I think that might be easier. So we've got 6 lots of 15, that's 90. 110, 135. So the blue squares are 135, right? This is where it's going to get tricky. So that means that the yellow squares plus the orange squares are equal to 405 minus 135, which is 270. That is very interesting to me because 270 is the number I was thinking of in terms of the lattice. Why was I thinking of 270 in terms of the lattice? Well, let's look at the lattice and consider what it's basically made up of. Well, it's made up of all of column 3, all of column 6, and all of column 9, and then sort of all of row 3, all of row 6, and all of row 9 as well. But if we were actually to add 40, if we were to count each of these columns as 45, i.e. a complete set of the digits 1 to 9, and then we did the same here, the same here, the same here, the same here, and the same here, we get 6 lots of 45, which is 270. But that would be overstating the value of orange, because of course if you look at this column a little carefully, whatever digit is in this cell is both in the column and in the row. So we're double counting this cell, we're double counting these cells. So these cells, so let's just make sure we're doing this properly as Maverick flies past. We've got orange plus yellow is equal to 200, no, orange plus yellow is 270. I'm getting 270 on the brain. But orange itself is equal to 270 minus these cells, which I'll have to flag with a different colour, maybe with a purple flash, because they're double counted. So now, yes, this is nice, isn't it? Because the 270s just cancel out, and what we're left with is yellows. The 2 yellows are equal to the purples, i.e. the sum of the 2 yellows is equal to the sum of the purples. Now, there are far too many purples here for this to not matter. Yes, in fact, this is clear, isn't it? What's the minimum you can put in those purples? I can put 1, 2, and 3 in this row, 1, 2, and 3 in this row, 1, 2, and 3 in this row. So the purples in this row add to 6. We've got 3 lots of 6 is 18. So I have to make the 2 yellows add up to 18. There is only one way of doing it. Double 9. There we go. We're off and running. That's a really clever sort of break-in, if that's the right expression for it. And very well signalled. I see that's something I really admire. It's a complicated idea, but it is clearly signalled. So it's fair. Now what I can do now, of course, is I can get rid of some 1s from those squares. And what do we do now? Do I need the colouring anymore? That's the question I'm asking. I'm not sure I do. I'll reinstate it if it feels like we need it, but I'm going to get rid of it just because it's distracting me a bit. And I'm going to stare at this again. So we have now got, why have I got 1s, 2s and 3s there? They don't look like they're in the right place. Surely they've got to be down there in the places where the intersections were. So there's something going on with 1s, 2s and 3s, he says self-evidently. Because, like, if we look in this box up here, you can't put 1, 2 and 3 in any of those cells. Because of the 1, 2, 3 triple in row 3 and the 1, 2, 3 triple in column 3. So this... Right, that doesn't have a 9 in it. There you go. There is a modest deduction. There is no 9 in that 15 cage, because if it had a 9 in it, you'd have to accompany the 9 with 1, 2 and 3, and this cell would have no possible value. So there's no 9, and does that apply everywhere? I think it does, because of the weird nature of the lattice. So there's no 9 in any of these 15 cages. Because if you try to put a 9 in any of those cages, you would break the 1, 2, 3 cell in the box. It feels to me, I'm actually going to reinstate the highlighting, just in case, because it feels again like the lattice is, it's forcing 9s around the grid. For example, what do I mean by that? What I mean is, in box 1, if the 9 is in this domino, that will propagate, I think, throughout the whole grid. If the 9 is in this domino, I think that propagates through the whole grid. So for example, if there's a 9 in this domino, the 9 in this box is now here, the 9 in this box is now here, the 9 in this box is now here, the 9 in this box is now here. We already know the 9s in those two boxes. We've got a 9 in one of those two cells, that makes sense. And in the middle box you get a 9 in the 20 cage. Now if on the other hand the 9 in box 1 is vertical instead, aren't we just going to get the opposite pattern? Or am I misleading myself here? The answer might be, it could go either way. Let's see. You still get a 9. Actually, you always get a 9 in the 20 cage then, because of these yellows. Oh, the 9 there must go in one of those cells. I see. So we've now got... Yes, so there's a 9. So yeah, so whichever way you go, you always end up with a 9 in the 20 cage. Which is that obvious to everybody? Is there a simple way of demonstrating that, or is that just a feature of these funny 15 cages? I don't know. Let's get rid of the highlighting again. So now we know there's a 9 in here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Right, we also know there's a 2 and a 3 in there, because that cell there is a 2 or a 3 because of the 1 in the column. So I've got 2, 3, 2, 3 pair, locking 2s and 3s into the 23 cage. Sorry, not the 23 cage, the 20 cage. I've got all sorts of numbers on the brain. Now, so this contains a 2, 3 and a 9, therefore it needs a 6 to add up to 20. And that means... don't know what that means actually. It doesn't seem to do much, does it? The 37 diagonal, is that? No, that's still... it's still only got one digit on it, so That's probably not where we look next. We've got to... I'm wondering whether I need to go back to the highlighting, you know. Maybe I've missed something important about this. Let's just highlight those squares again and let me think about this. So we've got the whole grid is equal to the blue squares plus the lattice. And the lattice is equal to 6 sets of the digits 1 to 9 minus the intersections. Yeah, that's okay. That's quite interesting. Okay, that's a way of showing there's a 9 in there, isn't it? Without doing the funny colouring. What do I mean by that? Well, we know the whole grid contains 9 sets of the digits 1 to 9. But we also know that the whole grid contains the blue squares plus 6 sets of the digits 1 to 9, which is the lattice, minus the cells that intersect in the lattice. Now, the cells that intersect in the lattice are all 1s, 2s and 3s. So that means the lattice contains exactly 6 9s, 6 8s, 6 7s, 6 6s, etc. And that means that the rest of the grid, the blue squares, must contain 3 of those digits because there are 9 in all. That means there are there are 3 digits, 3 9s in blue, and we know that 9 in blue can't go in the 15 cages, so it had to go in there, irrespective of the whole. Well, it's a sort of a corollary of the coloured analysis with the dominoes we did, but that now makes me think that maybe we've got to think about that I must have to put 3 8s, 3 7s, 3 6s, 3 6s in blue, although I know one of those 6s is there. So wherever the 8s go in blue, they're going to be accompanied by 1s, 2s and 4s. That's the only way of making the extra 7 you need in 3 cells. Okay, but I don't think we really know. Can we use that to deduce where the 8s go? I still feel I'm missing something about this puzzle, I'm afraid. I'm not quite... I feel like the geometry implications are just out of my grasp. What else can we do here? The 13 cages can't have another low digit in them, because they obviously see there's a 1 2 3 triple there and a 1 2 3 triple there. Same is true of the 12 cage here and the 13 cage here. So they can only have one low digit. So 4, that doesn't limit this cell, I don't think. It's 2s, 3s, 1s, 2, 3s. This 15 cage has to have... Ah, right, there you go. There is a small deduction, maybe. Yeah, in fact, this 13 cage, I think I can now... That's got one of the 8s in it. Right, here we go. Sorry, this was actually easier than I thought, but I didn't spot it. Let's have a look down here and draw the lattice as it affects box 7. Now you can see that we're going to have to put 2 of the digits 1, 2 and 3 in this 13 cage, because these cells can't have a 1, 2. Those cells there see 1, 2, 3 triples. So we're going to put one of the digits 1, 2 and 3 in here. The other 2 have to go in the 13 cage. Well, how are we going to make the 13 cage add up to a reasonable number then? It's going to have to be 2, 3 and 8 because we can't use 9. So that's 2, 3, 8 in there, and that gives us another digit. That gives us a 1 here. That gives us a 1 there as well, just because now we seem to have got 2 3 pairs in the corners of the lattice. So maybe the 12 cage is where we now look. So now we can, oh yeah, in fact now we have to put 2, 3 in there because we can't put 1 in there. So this is 2, 3 and 7. So now, okay. So now we know there's a 1 in this 15 cage. We know there's a 1 in this 15 cage, this 15 cage, this 15 cage, and this 15 cage, and indeed that 15 cage, nori nori. But I don't actually think that's terribly interesting. What do we do now? What about the 12 cage then? Oh yes, yeah, hang on a moment. So if that's a 2, those 2 digits have to add up to 10, but they can't use 1s, 2s and 3s, and they can't be double 5 because they're in the same cage, so these would have to be 4, 6. If that's a 3, they have to be 4, 5, so there's a 4 in one of those squares. So it's a 4 with either a 5 or a 6. And, that's interesting as well. I'm going to get rid of that colouring there. I think that colouring's a bit redundant and it's going to confuse what I'm about to do. Whatever's in this cell forces both of those 2 squares. So if that's a 2, both of those are a 3. If that's a 3, both of those are a 2. So these 2 digits here are the same number. So again, if they're both 3, you've now got to put 4s and 6s down there, and that breaks. This is really cool, this puzzle, because now we actually know what those 2 digits are. Let me show you. If they are both 3s, how are we going to make these 2 squares add up to 10? Well, they have to be 4 and 6, because they can't use 1, 2 and 3 because of the lattice. What about those? They have to be 4 and 6 as well. The 6 in here means this is now double 4, and the puzzle breaks. That is lovely. So now we've got double 2 here, which fixes the 12, which is going to fix the other digits, isn't it? So now those digits are 4 and 5. And the 13 clues now need 11 more, not using 1s, 2s and 3s. So they're either 4 7s or they're 5 6s. Right, okay, that can't be a 7 because of the 7 up here. So this, if it's 7, it needs to be 7 4 in that direction. And if it's 5 6 here, the 6 here means the 6 goes there, and this is a 5. And that means we can say bobbins. That doesn't seem to be resolved. What about here? And this is where I'm not very hopeful because the symmetry is so profound. It sort of feels if you get nothing there, you're not likely to get it here either. So we've got 4 7s again, and there's no restriction that I can see on 4 and 7. 5 6 has the same restriction that applied to that square because of the 6 in there. So that could be 5, that could be 6. And these look very, very uninteresting, which is disappointing. 5 7s. No, I've still got more. I've got more. This square definitely can't be a 5, because if that's a 5, what's that square? That 5 forces 7 here. You've got to put 4 there and 4 there, because there's definitely a 4 in this box. So if this is 5, you get 2 4s in row 3. So it's not. That's going to have to be a 4. That's a 5. Doesn't seem to resolve that. It removes an option from there, though. That's not 4. That's not 7. And oh, this is beautiful. Look at that. So this 12 cage in this configuration actually resolves this 13 cage. That's now got to be a 4. That's got to be a 7. You might see, might hear some trampoline wars. It sounds like they're about to kick off. Sorry about that if it disturbs you or me. So now it feels like we should be able to resolve that somehow. Which, oh, Although, this 2 gives me a 3 here. So that's a 2 and that's a 3. So we finally, I think, identified the corners of the lattice. And now, what's occurring to me is that in each 15 cage, I now know 2 digits. So I might as well put those digits in rather than the 1. This 3 means that that's got a 1, 2 in it. So it needs 12 more that's not 3, 9. So this is 4, 8 or 5, 7. Bobbins. I don't know how to do that. Maybe this one's better. 1, 3. 1, 3 is in the 15 cage, and we need 2 more cells that add up to 11, which are not 2, 9, 3, 8 or 5, 6. So that's 1, 3, 4, 7. So, it's about... Oh, no, this is gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Now 7s. 7s are aligning in these cells. So box 2 and box 3, the 7s are in the first 2 rows. That means we've not put a 7 in row 3 yet. It's going to have to go here. Why does that matter? Because now this can't be a 5, 7 to accompany the 1, 2. So that's got to be 4, 8. Now 4s are aligning. That means there's a 4 in this domino, which unfortunately doesn't resolve this cell, because this could still be the 4. 2. Oh, what about this? Yes, 8. 8 is aligning in columns 1 and 2. So where does the 8 go in column 3? There. That's probably going to put some pressure on this 15 cage, which has got 1, 3 in it, and then 2 cells that add to 11, which have to be 5 and 6, because everything else is gone. 2, 3, or 2, 2, 9, 3, 8, 4, 7's all gone. 6 is now aligning in these squares, so there's now a 6 down there. These 2 squares are now known. They're a 7, 9 pair. 9 down here tells us the order, so we've got 9, 7, 7 here, 5, 6, and 9 into this column. So this is never 9. This is 5 or 6. This is never 9 because there's a 9 here. 9 in column 3 is fixed. This is a 5 or whoopsie, whoopsie. Oh, it's a 5 or a 6 to complete the box. It sees 5, so that's a 6, that's a 5, that's a 6. I'm getting hopeful here. This is now a 4, 5 pair. And I've still not actually used my 15 cages anymore. And I was about to say I haven't got this resolved, but I have. There's a 6 here, so that's a 4 and that's a 7 to make the 13 cage add up. Those 2 squares have got to be 5 and 8. The 8 here is telling us the order. 8 is in one of those 2 squares. Now what about those 2 cells then? They've got to be 8 and 9, so that's an 8 and that's a 9. And that square there needs to be a 6 or an 8, which we don't know about yet, but that means those 2 squares at the bottom are 4 and 9, which we do know about because of the 9 here. So that's a 4. Now, what's this 15 cage now? It's got a 1 and a 2 in it. It's not 4, 8 or 3, 9 to accompany it, so that's 5, 7. I love this. This is so cool. And those 2 squares have got to be 6, 8, and there's an 8 here. So 8 goes in, 6 goes in. Those squares are 7, 9 pair to complete the row. This box has got a 1, 3 in it. It's not got 2, 9, 3, 8, or 4, 7. So this is 1, 3, 5, 6. Those 2 squares are 8 and something. 4, I think. So there's a 4 here. So 4 and 8 go into the grid. What about those 2 squares? They are a 5, 6 pair, which actually doesn't look like it's resolved, but this is 1, 2, and 4, 8, because 5, 7 isn't available, and 3, 9 isn't available. Now the 8's and the 4 is fixed. The 4 has to go there exactly. The 8 is fixed, and that's in those cells. 2, 3, 7 and 9 into those cells is just fixed. 9 over here is fixed in the central box. It has to be in that cell. 6 is fixed by this 6, so that's 6, and that's on the diagonal as well, so we'll have to check that out in a second. We've got 3's there, 2's there coming out, 4's coming out up here. These squares are a 5, 6 pair, which is resolved. Yes, that's going to give us more joy here with the 6 and the 8. I was going to say, is the lattice done? It's not quite done. Oh, but there's a 9 here, so that's a 9, that's a 7. So these two squares don't seem to be resolved. No, maybe it's not doable. So what do we do to finish it off? We've got 8s are not there. I think it's going to be this diagonal, but it may be that I've missed some Sudoku. So let's just check Sudoku first. 6 here means those aren't 6s. In fact, that's a 6. Just we need to put a 6 in the blue, and 6s are pinching the available squares. Okay. What about down here? Can we do any tidying up? I don't think we can. 2, 3, 7's up there. No, I think we're going to have to look at this diagonal. Now, what have we got on it so far? We've got 12. So the other squares are adding up to 25. And there are 5 of them, aren't there? So they're averaging 5, which is disappointing. So let's max them out then. So 8 plus 4 plus 3 is 15. Plus 5 plus 6 is 26. Didn't I need 25? I think I needed 25. I did need 25. So 25 is what I need, but 26 is the absolute maximum if I pick all of the highest digits. So along this diagonal, any digit, this has to be 8. Because if it wasn't 8, we'd lose too many degrees of freedom. It would drop to 4, and then I couldn't get to 25. So this is 8. That's got to be 4 by the same token. If we drop to 2, we've lost 2 degrees of freedom. We've only got 1. That can be 2 or 3. That's got to be 5. Oh, in fact, this is good. This pair here is good, because this has to be 5, because 3 loses 2 degrees of freedom. Now this square now has 1, 3 or 6 as an option, so it's got to be 6, or we're going to drop 3 degrees of freedom in effect, so that's a 6, and now probably we can do the diagonal because we've only got one more square left. So now we've got, what have we got here? We've got 22, 28, 35. Does that make sense? It does if that's a 2. So that's a 2, that's a 3, that's a 2, that's a 1. That's a 3. So we've now got a 1, 5 pair here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I wanted to just delete the 3 from that cell. Oh, come on, you must be done now. Those two are a 1, 2 pair, because the 4 and the 8 have gone. What about these squares? Those two squares have to be a 1, 3 pair, and we can do those using the 1 above them. That gives us a 3 in that cell. 2, 7 here. The 6 is giving us the 6 and the 5. Now, what else can we do? I feel like we must now have done it. I'm just not seeing the Sudoku pieces. That 4 and 5 is done at the bottom finally. That gives us the 5 and the 1 and the 2. Here we go, 2 and the 7. Now we can get rid of, these should be done. Yes, there's a 3 here. So there's a 1, a 4. Those two squares there have got to be something. 3 and 7, which is now resolved. Just checking the arithmetic, that does still add up. The 1 here means this is a 2. This is now a 7. So 1 and 5 is resolved. And these squares over, this should be done. That's a 2, that's an 8, that's a 3. And that could be the puzzle. Puzzle solved. Absolutely gorgeous. I really liked that. I liked every step of it. I liked the break-in with these funny 2x2s doing work. And the fact that you could sort of... Actually, the title is so well chosen, frankly. Because the moment I saw that this pattern looked close to a lattice, I sort of knew I had to keep investigating it. And it sort of reveals itself in the whole sum of the Sudoku rather beautifully. But even after that, there's quite a lot to do. There's quite a lot of ideas to have around these 1, 2, 3 intersections and how they have to be allocated to the 15 cages. But I'm going to go and join in the trampoline war now. I hope you enjoy that. Let me know in the comments. I do enjoy them, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later with another edition. Cracking the Cryptic.